Yo, back once again with another movie review, man. This is actually take two. First take, I got distracted, so I'm doing this again. Now, this movie review is going to be for the new Jumanji movie, Next Level. I actually wasn't planning on seeing this tonight. I actually wanted to see the new Adam Sandler movie, Uncut Gems, but when I got to the theater, it was sold out. I was surprised, yes. It was sold out, so I had to settle for Jumanji. I was planning on seeing Jumanji anyway, but I just didn't feel like seeing it tonight. I know it came out a couple weeks ago, but I wasn't able to see it when it came out opening weekend. So I went to go see it tonight. Just got back from the theater about like 20 minutes ago. And yeah, I mean, in short, you know, I liked it a lot, actually. I'm just going to go more into detail now. So, when they first announced Jumanji a couple years ago, when they announced that they was going to, like, kind of reboot the series or the franchise and whatnot, and they explained what the premise is going to be, I thought it was going to suck because I was like, man, they are changing it so much from the original film in 1995 with Robin Williams. Remember in that movie, it was a board game, and I remember when they announced it was going to be like a video game, I was like, here goes Hollywood again, messing up classics. So I thought this was going to be another just trash reboot of a, you know, well-beloved movie, well-beloved franchise. I guess you could call it a franchise, I don't even know. But, I mean, Jumanji is such a classic film, man. Everybody loved it. So when they announced that they was bringing it back with this new spin, I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one who thought that it was gonna fail. It was gonna fall flat on its face. So when the trailer came out a couple of years ago for the very first film of the reboot, I was like, yeah, I was even feeling more strong that the film was gonna suck. I was like, there's no way this movie's gonna be good. But, you know, it's Jumanji. I was kind of curious to see where it was going to take it, like how it was going to play out, how this new premise was going to play out. And I saw it in theaters when the first one dropped, and I was pleasantly surprised. I really enjoyed it a lot. I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did, but it was really good. Like they did a really good job with it. You know, if you know what the first one is about, you know, like 4 friends from school, you know, get into this video game, and each one of them has avatars, and their avatars are they look much more different, of course, than how they normally look in the real world. So you got that sort of gimmick going on throughout the movie. So you have Kevin Hart playing, you know, one character in real life, but they look nothing alike. So he has to play the personality of the person that went inside the video game. And I think that sort of premise is very interesting. I think that's what makes the movie. When these 4 regular characters go into this video game world, the avatars that they take on, they have to take on the personality of that person. So I think that's what makes the movie shine. And I think that's what made the first movie shine, pretty much, is each person acting out the versions that they're supposed to be, if that makes sense. So like there's this one black dude in the movie, and in the first one, his avatar is pretty much Kevin Hart. So Kevin Hart has to play up as the black guy in real life. And I think when you have that sort of dynamic going on between the characters and the interactions between the characters, that's what makes the movie funny. That's what makes the movie really good. And it's pretty much, of course, that's the same thing that goes on in this movie. There's a couple of new characters in here. You have Danny Devito, who plays one of the main characters' grandfathers, as far as Danny Glover. I was about to say Donald Glover because, man, I always get those two mixed up. But Danny Glover, he's also in this movie. He plays Danny DeVito's friend. They actually owned a restaurant together, and Danny Glover, he sold the restaurant. So Danny DeVito's character, he has like this angst against his friend because, you know, he kind of went behind his back and sold the business, and he didn't want to sell the business. He wanted to stay in the restaurant business, and, you know, they kind of broke up as friends, yada, yada, yada. That's one of the plot points in the movie, like one of the side plot points in the movie. And that does get kind of like developed and fleshed out. But like I said, man, I'm kind of jumping all over the place. Yeah, this movie is really good. Usually with sequels to movies like this, you're not really expecting it to be as good as the first one. You're kind of expecting it to kind of be like a drop-off from the first film. But I actually think that this film is actually just as good as the first one. I can't say it's better, really. They're kind of like neck and neck. They're kind of like the same kind of movie. You do have some new interesting takes in it. You have some new interesting characters that pop up. There's this new thing in the movie. I'm not really going to spoil what it is, but it's this new kind of like, I guess you could say plot device where, if you go into it, if the characters go into it, something happens to the characters. I'm just gonna say it just like that. I don't want to give too much away, but yeah, there's this plot device to where if you go inside this thing, something happens. But that's within the video game. So that's like this kind of like new thing that they added in this movie, which is really interesting. And that's one of the things that I wish they would have played upon more, is that element. Because I think that element was very, very interesting, especially when it happened. You know, it's kind of like, it's a shift, it's a change. And I don't want to give too much away on what it is, but just know that it's a change. It's a shift that happens within the movie. So when you see it, you'll know exactly what I talk about. Or if you already saw it, I think you could kind of already pinpoint what I'm trying to get to. But I'm going to keep this one short and sweet. It's a really good movie. I am pleasantly surprised again that they was able to nail this sort of premise again and just do it. You know what I mean? Like I said before, there are a couple of new characters. So most of the main cast is back, like Kevin Hart, The Rock, the girl that's in the first one, I don't know her name. The guy who was in the first one, who was in the video game for like 20 years and they rescued out, he actually comes back in this new one. I actually kind of forgot who he was when he showed up. I was like, wait, who is that again? But then when they showed him again, it was like my memory kicked back in. I was like, oh yeah, that was the guy who got stuck in a video game for 20 years and they rescued him out. And then at the end, he went back to his old house, and then he was able to you know, have a family again and whatnot. And he actually named, this is a little bit of a spoiler if you didn't see the first one, but he had a kid, and he named his kid after one of the characters who rescued him. So he actually comes back in this one, and he actually helps the main cast out in this movie. Pretty much the main plot is actually very much like the first one. They have to get this gem or this emerald. The last one, it was like a jaguar gem kind of, and they had to go up on this mountain and get the jaguar gem. This time is like a falcon gem and whatnot, so they had to go back and get the falcon gem. It's pretty much that. But I think what really makes this movie shine is the character interactions and the personalities, like each character playing out different types of characters. That's what makes this movie really, really good, because Kevin Hart, like each character, they're not playing the same characters as they was playing in the first movie. So like if you saw the first one, like Kevin Hart, he was playing the black dude. Jack Black's character, he was playing a girl. And The Rock, he was playing the nerdy kid, Spencer. In this one, it gets switched around. So The Rock and Kevin Hart, they play different characters. And Jack Black's character, he plays a different character. And like I said before, there's a plot device in this movie to where if the character gets inside this thing, things change. So, like I said, I don't want to give too much away, but just know when you see this movie, or if you saw this movie already, you know what I'm talking about. So I think that's what really makes the movie shine, It's the interaction between characters, each character playing a different personality. I think that's what I really like about this movie the most. And they was able to do it again. And the characters that The Rock and Kevin Hart and Jack Black plays, they play it really well. Like, you look at them and it's like, yeah, they're playing these, like, you see The Rock, but like the way the character that The Rock is playing is like, yeah, I could see a little bit of, there's a little bit of a spoiler, but The Rock, he plays Danny DeVito's character in the movie. So when The Rock is like playing Danny DeVito's character, you could definitely see some of like, you know, old man mannerisms and grandpa mannerisms, because Danny DeVito, he's like a grandpa, like an old, like grumpy grandpa in this movie. And when The Rock plays him, he definitely plays it up. He definitely plays it up. Same with Kevin Hart. He plays Danny Glover's character in the movie, who's actually like another like old grandpa. You know, Danny DeVito and Danny Glover are like best buddies in this film. Or was like forming best buddies. They used to own a restaurant together, and then Danny Glover, he sold the business, and basically Danny DeVito's character, he basically had like an angst against his friend, and they pretty much broke up because of that, and they wasn't really speaking to each other. And that sort of plot gets kind of like fleshed out throughout the movie. I do like that kind of plot point, and how they fleshed it out, and it was actually really good. So like I said, man, I don't even want to go on too much or too long-winded. It's not that type of film to go way in depth like that. But I think it's a really fun movie, just like the first one. It's very entertaining, just like the first one. It's pretty funny, just like the first one. If you have family, definitely go out and see it. The theater that I was at, I think everybody liked it. Everybody was laughing. There was kids in the theater, and they seemed like they all had a good time because they was all laughing at all the jokes and stuff. And yeah, it's a solid movie. I'm surprised. I am surprised that this movie turned out to be good again. It's very rare that you get a sequel to a film like this where the sequel is as good as the first one. So I'm glad I saw it. It was a fun time. I had fun watching it. I do want to say this. There is like a end credit scene. Well, it's not like all the way at the end. It's like midway, or like in the beginning of the mid. But you'll see it once the credits start to roll, because they play it like pretty right away. And it's pretty interesting what happens. So I think another one is coming. And this time things are going to be much different. If they go with what they set up in this end credit scene. And I think they're going to go for it. And I think we're going to get the Jumanji that everybody was expecting. I think I gave a little bit too much away with that, but just keep in mind, when you see the end credit scene, you're like, this is the Jumanji that we always wanted. So I think if they go this route with the third one, oh man, it's gonna be nuts. It's gonna be nuts. So I really hope that this movie was successful enough in the box office that they do make another film, because I really do want to see another film in this little franchise right here. Because like I said, the first two films I liked a lot. I liked the first one, I liked the second one, and now seeing the end credit of this film, how it ended, now I'm like, oh, okay, I see where they're going now. Now it's like, okay, this is gonna be interesting, because it's not gonna be, it doesn't seem like it's gonna be the same kind of gimmick anymore. This is gonna be something much different. So I'm glad that they're actually like taking the next step into, you know, changing things around. Because if they made a third one, and they made it more of the same, I think that the gimmick would have like kind of like died out. I think it would have just been a little bit played out. But now that they're kind of switching things up now and making things a little bit more interesting, I'm very curious to see where this goes. So if you haven't seen it, definitely go out and see it. I'm glad I saw it. It was a fun movie. I actually wanted to see Uncut Gems with Adam Sandler, but it was sold out. I was kind of bummed about it, but this is what I was left with, and I'm glad I was left with it. So I'm going to just wrap it up from there, man. I still don't have an outro. Peace out. Whatever. Yeah.